Hello and welcome to another episode of the Developing Your Football World podcast. Joining me on this episode is Rhys Barker. We have a great conversation which I'm sure you'll enjoy, as there's much we can learn from Rhys and his experience. Enjoy the show.
Rhys, thank you very much for coming on this afternoon and joining us. I'm really looking forward to talking to you.
Thank you, Will. Thank you for having me. Brilliant to be on.
So let's start with your introduction into coaching. You did football studies at Solent, is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Are you one of the many disciples of Clwyd Jones?
Absolutely. And Dr. Elliott himself.
Yeah, Clwyd is a man who's touched the hearts and minds of many an impressionable young football coach, and his impact on the world will far outlive him. And you got a BTEC in sports, did you?
That's right, yeah, just before I went to uni. Yeah.
So when was it you knew you wanted to go into coaching?
I think probably around, I'd say, when I was at uni. So it was probably around, I was at uni 2007 to 2010, probably around 2009. Just something inside me wanting to go into coaching. I don't know what it was. It probably creeps up on a lot of people. I was playing football, so I was playing in the Southampton area. My last club was Cal Sports on the Isle of Wight, so I was going from Southampton on the ferry over to Isle of Wight, and then I started to have really bad issues with my knee, which ended up being a cartilage operation. And then when I left uni, it just never felt the same, and it's just something where I probably felt that I wasn't gonna play at play at a really high level. I was probably gonna go back into playing with friends, Sunday league level. So I just thought I'm gonna go focus on my coaching. And when I left uni, as you do, trying to find a job in anything, coming back home. So I moved back home to Essex at the time, and yeah, just found a few temp roles, but also done some coaching in schools, and that was probably my first taste of coaching. So probably 2010. And it was through a company called Foundation Sports, which were based in Redbridge in Essex, so providing multi-sports coaching in schools. And it was an after-school football club. And I think it was year 5, if I can remember. And it was just, it's just something I loved. And went on to do some other stuff. So obviously multi-sports in schools. Just sport, any other sport for me, no, football was the one. It's the one I enjoyed the most doing. And yeah, and that's where I've started. That was my first taste of coaching, and where I've kind of come from, looking back on it.
I struggle with the multi-sports as well. I really enjoy basketball, but I'll be playing it thinking, you know what would be even better is if we put this ball on the ground and kick it. It'd be so much more fun if we do that. So what would go on?
I was going to say, and the funny part of that is that the kids know the rules of other sports more than you do. So when you're trying to coach a sport and you're doing a game at the end, and you don't know the rules, and the kids do, it's especially primary school ages, it don't look very good. So it was fantastic. Obviously, coaching, any kind of coaching was great at the time, just to get that experience working in an environment, just to kind of help kids in anything really. So, but football was always the one for me.
Just give me flashbacks to when I was in the US working for a company that made us do some multi-sport, and we were teaching baseball to American kids. Yeah, and they were asking us questions that we didn't even know. We knew what the words meant individually, but put in the order, can we tag people? What? What does that mean? And of course, you can tag someone in baseball if you have the ball before they run to the base. Yeah, we didn't know that. And I think out of our coaching cohort, I was the only one actually ever went to watch baseball games, and still did not know that. So what was it about these coaching experiences that said to you, this is good, I want to take this seriously?
I think just the reaction. I think the reaction to the kids that I coached, I think that kind of gives you an idea that whether you're good or not, first and foremost. And I think, obviously, like I said, football is a passion. So I think any kind of role in football when I left uni was going to be the one for me, put it that way, even if it wasn't coaching, whether it was analysis, recruitment. But just being on the grass and coaching and running that session and going home and just having a real buzz for it, seeing the kids enjoying it as well, and knowing just, they've been in classes all day, probably not ones that they enjoy, and just coming out, and I think that's the environment especially when they want to do something. Well, I'm sure we'll touch on that later. When they want to do something, when a kid is coachable and stuff like that, when they actually want to do it, they're going to get the most out of it. And I think as a coach, you just see the benefits straight away. So that kind of just falls in place. You just want to keep doing it, and then you get better at it, and then you do badges, and you go into different environments, try different challenges, and you just love it's just always there.
So on badges, let's talk about what's been the best formal coaching education experience.
So for me, it was probably my last coaching badge. So it was my UEFA course. And it weren't just the UEFA course itself. It was the people I met there. The environment was brilliant. It was done through the Kent FA. We had tutors that were Simon Millington, who I actually done my FA Youth Award with. So that helped a lot. So I knew Simon, met him before. We had Darren Hare, who was actually at Gillingham at the time, and also Dover Athletic as a first team coach. And then we had Keith Bonas, who's pro licence. And at the time he was manager of Watford Ladies in the Women's Premier League. And Keith was going to be my main tutor. He reached out to me a couple of weeks before the course started just to find out a bit more about me, which I thought was really, really good. I've done my level 1, level 2. I've never had a tutor reach out to find out a bit more about you as a person before a course. And I think that was a real good start to the relationship that we've now got now. So when was it? 2017 now. I keep forgetting what year we're in now. But 2017, that was UEFA B. It was a course I always wanted to do. It's kind of a milestone, I think, for a lot of coaches. And it was for me, certainly, especially like we touched on before, when you're trying to pay for courses, it's difficult. When you haven't got the money just to put on a course just like that, it is hard. At university, I obviously done football studies, so we covered a lot in depth with the legend itself, Clwyd Jones. And you kind of come out of uni thinking, I had my level 1, and I thought, I don't need to get any other badges, because my football studies course was so in depth, and Clwyd was so knowledgeable, especially for the sessions he'd done on our course. They were blinding. And we'd done a coaching in football unit at university, but where that's not recognised by the FA, you obviously have to do your badges. So there was a slight frustration leading into so many years of not having your UEFA B. So to hit that and get on my UEFA B and go, right, I've now got it. It just felt really good. And it weren't just a case of getting a badge. The experience was great. Working with Keith Bonas, who we still speak now, really close friends. If a job comes up that he thinks might suit me, he's in touch. He'll send it over, see if I've probably rejected a few, and he'll probably kick my ass for saying that. But we just got such a good relationship. And I think not just the UEFA B, getting that badge, having that relationship with Keith now, who's got a ton of experience, a ton. I'm still surprised he's not coaching at 18, manager of a team in the pro game, because his knowledge is unbelievable. And we're talking about a person that came in to do sessions while I was doing my UEFA B to kind of give me some ideas, coming out of his own times down to an under-13s team, grassroots team to coach when he's pro licensed. They're the type of people you want to be around. So as an overall package, in answer to your question, that was the best formal education, but also just that relationship has just changed my life, really, especially as a coach.
You often find that the best are very, very generous with their time. And Keith is incredibly highly regarded, followed him for years. Ever since I did a CPD, probably about 10, 12 years ago at Fulham, it was brilliant. So it's great to see that someone like that is able to reach out and give you the time of day when a lot of others wouldn't. So that is brilliant. Now, you've done UEFA B. You've done a football studies, a lot of coaching. So where do you look to try and improve next as a coach? What areas do you think you might be lacking, might need more attention? Where do you want to specialise?
I think, like I mentioned at the start, or just before we came on, I've been out of coaching this season. Wanted to have a break. It's been, as you know, it's been 10 plus years coaching, been a part of my life. Wanted to come out to focus on my newborn daughter, but also use that time that, you know, I was out doing sessions and coaching on a weekend to learn and do some observation. And I've reached out to a few clubs to do some observation, which I was supposed to do for Christmas, but obviously COVID stopped that happening. So hopefully when that starts to clear up a little bit, we can go in and do that. But the areas I'll probably look back on that are not specifically on the grass, it's more myself as a person. And it's come from feedback. So I wasn't hesitant to reach out for feedback from parents of players that I've coached and also players themselves. And there's always going to be one within that category that always stands out. You know, that parent said that, and it always links. So for me, it's the emotional side of the game. And there's positives and negatives. So, for example, the positive is I'm really passionate about it. Then the negative is I'm really, really passionate about it when it comes to a game day. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. But when you're trying to be a leader of a group, I think it is important to know how to control them emotions, not just stop them emotions, but control them. So that was one area that I came away back in May from my last team and thought that is one area that I think I need to improve on. And having a break from coaching helps that, obviously, because you're not in the environment all the time, coming away from it and actually reflecting properly on what you were doing and watching other coaches was important to me. So I think that's one area I've looked to improve on. Last year, I went on to the Centre of Excellence website and found an emotional diploma course, which I've now completed. Emotional intelligence diploma course, shall I say, that I've completed. And that was kind of something that I read about Graham Potter that he's done. Read about that last year. That is something that he's done a master's in emotional intelligence. And I thought, you know what, that's an area I need to improve on. I might have a look into it. Saw a diploma, read about it, and the course was brilliant. So obviously I've not been able to try to test things out yet because I've not been coaching. So we'll find out what that's like at some point, and I'm sure I'll feed back to you at some point. And I think just in general for me, what I want the next step for me is to go into a senior environment if I can. So I've looked at, you know, my management skills, how I'm managing players individually, from a youth player to a senior player. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of different challenges. So they're the two areas I wanted to improve on, not specifically the coaching itself, the sessions. I think you're always going to reflect after every session and need to improve on that. Me was more my relationship skills with people on the pitch and off the pitch. So I hope that answers that question.
I've got visions of some former directors and head coaches almost coming to blows with parents. Fantastic people that were great, that truly believed in what they were doing and were great at coaching kids and setting the right environment, but just occasionally let parents get them maybe a bit too much and would firmly stand up for the kids and what we're doing. So you mentioned observing other coaches. You went off to the Netherlands for a while, didn't you?
I did.
Who did you see?
I saw FC20.
Okay. Now, I've got a slight giggle going because I have a friend of mine who is one of the most dry people in the world. He can say anything's not funny and just makes it funny. And years ago, we were watching on TV Spurs against FC20, and the camera pans around to the Twente fans in the away end. And the commentator says, and there's the Twente fans. And the mate just said, there's 20 of them. And it set me off for about 10 minutes. And of course, it's not funny, but some people are very, very good in their delivery.
Yeah.
So I struggle with that name ever since. He's done that, unfortunately. Now, how long were you there for? And was it just them that you saw?
I was only there for a week. It was in 2016. So I can go over the story quickly. So how it came about. I was on LinkedIn famous LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Connected with a few coaches. It wasn't specifically Holland. There was a lot of other countries. So the glamorous ones, Spain, Portugal. If I was going to go somewhere, it's got to be nice. Holland I've been to many times before. Went out to play in a football tournament years ago with my own team, but I was injured, which was horrendous. But just loved the country. I think growing up in our era, I guess you always hear about Total Football, Dutch football, Edgar Davids, players like that, phenomenal players. Bergkamp when he was at Arsenal, and just the technical side of their game was just superb. So Holland always stood out, and I managed to get, I don't know how, and I've landed on pretty much a lottery ticket really. I managed to get in touch with a coach called Abdi Hassan, who was the under-14s coach at 20 at the time. And again, it was just a case of, look, I just want to come out and observe a few sessions, learn a little bit about the Dutch way, just to see if there's anything that I can pick up to take back home. And Abdi came back and said, look, you got in touch at a good time. We're going to a tournament in Enschede, which is kind of, I suppose, north side of Holland. Playing against, obviously, some other Dutch teams, but obviously teams from abroad as well, at a local semi-pro club out there called Vergido, I think they were called. We get given an apartment within a hotel. We have a certain amount of bedrooms, and it's all paid for. One of the coaches can't come. We've not got a replacement. Do you want to come? All you got to do is pay for your flights. I was like sitting there, and to be fair, as you can imagine, I've never met this guy in my life, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this if he ever saw this, because I did say it to him at the time. I was thinking, is this legit? Like, I need to contact FC20 first. I'm not just flying out to Holland and being picked up by some guy I've never met. But I took the risk. I'm still here, so it's good. But yeah, I flew out to Eindhoven, got into Enschede. It was about a 2.5 hour journey on a train from Eindhoven to Enschede, but kept myself occupied. And then Abdi picked me up, come spinning around in his car at the station. I was like, oh my God, I hope I'm going to be all right. Send my last messages to people just in case. And then,
I hope one of them was Liam Neeson, just to let him know. Definitely. Had to get him involved straight away. And then he took me to the place we were staying. It was in a wooded area, like a centre park. So yeah, obviously I was like, oh my God, where are we going? But the place was unbelievable. It was so good. And yeah, he showed me I met his coaching staff. Showed me to a room. Obviously let me get comfortable, and then spoke about the tournament itself. We went and watched a couple of games. They didn't play till the next day, just to see that the facilities were out of this world for pretty much a semi-pro grassroots club. You know, you're turning up in a clubhouse, 2 3G pitches. In fact, 2 clubhouses, grass pitches, and I was thinking, this looks like a professional environment, not a semi-pro club or a grassroots club. And then we went back to the hotel, and he took me through what he does as a coach, how the FC20 coaches work, the philosophy, how they do things. And then obviously the games kicked in the next day. I didn't think I'd be kind of involved as much as I was, not in terms of the delivery, but hands-on, being involved, sitting on the benches, seeing how they conduct themselves. Obviously, they speak in a different language, so that was a little bit difficult to pick up at times. But Abdi always took the time to come and sit down and tell me what he said. At certain times, he couldn't do it all the time, obviously, but just to kind of give me an idea of what they were doing, what they were trying to do on the pitch, and the changes they were going to make and stuff like that, as you know. And luckily, they ended up winning the tournament. So, and I was so engrossed in it. We played FC Basel. I say we, it's like I'm a part of FC20. We were for the week, legitimately. You were there.
We were there. It was all due to me. It was all good. We played FC Basel in the final of the tournament, which I was just sitting on the bench. I was so engrossed in it. It went 1-0 to Basel. I was like, oh my God, no! Like FC20 have done so well. And and obviously they're only short of game because it's the tournament. But then they scored pretty much in the last kick of the game. FC20 went to extra time, only a short extra time. Nothing really happened, and then it went to penalties. And I remember the winning penalty going in, and I was celebrating. And yeah, it was just such a surreal moment. Like, that was just topped off the weekend. But that's kind of the story of how it came about, and kind of a little bit about what happened on there.
But from you, any knee slides and badge kissing after that week?
What's that? Sorry?
Any knee slides and badge kissing after that week?
I wanted to kiss the badge. Abdi gave me a uniform to wear, FC20 tracksuit to wear during the week. So I was tempted to kiss the badge. But yeah, I kept myself under 14s. You maybe want to keep yourself to yourself in that situation and just remain cool.
Sure. Well, it'd be hard to remain cool watching a final go to penalties between Twente and Basel. That's almost like Champions League, Europa League kind of stuff. And
it's just, the whole experience was just brilliant. I think from a coaching perspective, to be watching teams, there were obviously Dutch teams in there, so PSV were there, AZ Alkmaar, and then obviously they had the semi-pro club there for Guido, and then we had Wolfsburg, Basel, Nordsjælland, and Malmo. I think they're the ones. So all different styles of play, very, very different, especially Basel. Basel, I was very kind of, like, when I say impressed, not my style of play, but different to what we were seeing on the tournament. A lot of the play was on the floor. Dutch teams like to get the ball down and play. Similar to Malmo, Nordsjælland, who have now obviously really progressed since I went out there. I hear about them all the time now. I didn't know anything about them until I saw them that tournament. They were very impressive. And then Basel were very, very physical, very, very big compared to the others. I can't really describe their style of play. It's different, just different, more direct, obviously very more direct, but very good at winning the duels, getting on the ball, playing direct. No real kind of football playing from the back, but it worked for him, and it was great to watch. You know, the coaches were very intense on the sideline, very intense. Abdi was very kind of relaxed, just always sitting on his chair watching, gives him information at half time, lets him crack on. Maybe every now and then he might drop in a little thing during the game. Whereas the Basel coach was like, bang, 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 bang. So we actually lost to them in the first game in the group. And I was sitting there thinking, yeah, we beat them. We beat them in the final. But a bit of name dropping. So PSV had a player called Jaden Braff, who's now at Man City, you probably know. He was 14 at the time. Unbelievable player. Funnily enough, I remember seeing two older guys in the spectators wearing Man City tops. So I don't know where it's come from that, but I was a bit gutted because I wanted to go and approach them, but I didn't know if they were going to be English or not. So I didn't want to turn up and they're Dutch scouts of Man City. But Jaden Braff was just so unbelievably talented, and he set that tournament alight. And he's obviously got his move to Man City when he was 17. I don't know where. I think he went on loan to Udinese last season. I don't know if he's going to eventually get into that first team, but he's such a talented player, just so technically good, but very physically powerful as well as a winger. If you look at him now, he doesn't look big. He looks quite a small winger. But when he was 14, he looked more mature than the other players. But just seeing it's weird, isn't it, when you see a player like that, 14 years old, and then you don't see him again, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing Man City sign this player called Jaden Braff, and I think I recognise that name. 4 or 5 years later, and then you look at him now, and it's like just incredible to see how much they develop. But yeah, he's a phenomenal talent on that tournament.
It sounds like an incredible time, and it's inspiring me to set up a beach adjacent study visit with some other coaches through the website. But where do you lads want to go? Anyone fancy going to see what they do at Malaga in the summertime?
Seville.
Yeah. So somewhere nice and warm like that. Any of Portugal, Spain, Italy, around about May or August time. I'm sure we can set something up. Yeah. Yeah.
You could try Australia or New Zealand around Christmas time.
Yeah, it's more Ryanair don't tend to fly that far, do they?
Keep it cheap. Yeah.
Yeah, looking for somewhere potentially even drivable distance. Why not?
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask you about your time there. Uh, what stood out to you the most, or what things stood out to you the most from the experience and from Dutch football in general?
Um, Firstly, I'd say I think I touched on it. It's the technical ability of the players. Not saying we haven't got technical great players in this country, but just every player was technically sound out there. Goalkeepers, defenders, just all comfortable, and you could probably put them in multiple positions. That's what I noticed. For example, FC20, I can't remember the player's name, but the captain who was centre back, he's now, I can't remember his name. I think he's now AZ Alkmaar. So AZ Alkmaar bought him a few years ago, but he's just so technically good on the ball, and I think he ended up playing centre back, right back, CDM, all through that tournament, and no problems whatsoever. And you could probably do that with a lot of players, the Dutch players anyway.
Do you think they train that so the players are good in multiple positions because of the fluidity of total football that they end up rotating so much? Is that done deliberately?
Possibly. I think I didn't really touch on it with Abdi, to be honest. It possibly is. It probably is in their training program. There's obviously things that they do technically within training. There's one thing that I learned from it that we could probably put into the English football that I don't really tend to see. But again, I don't know. It might have been implemented or not. But in terms of what stood out first, obviously the players' technical ability and obviously the facilities. Like I mentioned, the facilities for a grassroots club turning up, 2 3G pitches, full-size pitches, 2 clubhouses, grass pitches around the back. Are we there yet? Not many clubs have got that. We're getting, obviously, I see a lot better facilities compared to when I was younger, but that's what stood out to me, just the facilities were turning up to that ground. Like I said, it's like you turn up to a professional academy football ground. And for them to have that probably links into how they're able to develop technical players because they've got that facility every week. And I'm guessing they don't have a lot of games called off and training sessions. So, and it's obviously 3G pitches are a great service to do technical work on. So they're the 2 main things that stood out for me when I was there. It's a very similar country to us. It's not, it's only 40 minutes on a plane. So there's nothing really different in terms of the kind of style. Obviously, a lot of riding bikes over there, which is a pain in the ass. But you've got to be very careful if you go to Amsterdam not to get run over, put it that way. But
And not a good place to park either.
No, definitely not. But no, there were two main things that stood out to me.
So on that, what do you think we could steal from the Dutch to make English football better? You mentioned facilities, and they are improving, but a lot of coaches will complain about some of the heavily funded 3G, 4G complexes they're making, and the costs are extortionate. And unfortunately, you get a lot of these pay-to-play development centres show up, and they're asking 500 quid a year for kids to be treated like an academy, and yet in name only. And so I'm worried that we're getting too American in that sense. But apart from my cynical ramblings, what do you think we can take from them?
No, I think you touched on good points. I think grassroots football is always going to need to improve every season. A coach needs to improve every season. Players need to improve every season. Parents, facilities. But in terms of what I took from it that I think that we could implement, and it's something that caught my eye. I just thought it was quite good, but we need it in this country. I think. Like I say, this was 2016, so I don't know if we have implemented it within our professional academies. But they had a program called Life Kinetics, something called Life Kinetics. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's almost, in simple terms, because when Abdi explained it to me, I did get lost a little bit, I have to admit. In simple terms, it's almost brain training within a football environment. So it's doing certain tasks physically to improve your accessing different chambers of your brain, but at a higher rate, so a quicker rate, shall I say, intensity. So I didn't, obviously Abdi explained it to me, and it's something that they have in their training program at FC20, and I think they do have it across the country. I think it's come from Germany. I remember doing a bit more research on it when I came home. There's nothing in this country. It is in America. So America, I think, took it from the Germans into America. And I think America, they have instructors that obviously teach coaches how to then coach in their players. I remember reaching out to someone in America to find out if there's a program that I could do. Obviously, you need to live in America to do it. And then I found a book online, Life Connects book. It's a German book. So having to type in the German words on Google to translate it all was difficult, but there is obviously demonstrations in the book. And then if you go on YouTube, there's videos as well if you type in Life Connects. An example of it would be just a picture. So 2 players facing each other with a ball, passing back and forward. That's a normal kind of technical drill, I guess. Whereas this, you implement them holding 2 tennis balls, one in both hands. And as they're passing the ball, they're chucking the balls up in the air and catching the balls at the same time. So it's getting them to multitask. But training the brain at the same time. Now, Abdi is probably the best person to speak to on what the benefits are on that long term. But I just found it really interesting, and trying it myself is difficult. It sounds like when you first hear it, that sounds quite easy, but it is difficult. And if you watch, I'll send you a link to a YouTube video. There's a YouTube video where there is a session where they do it. And then the next stage that you have to cross your hands over and throw the balls and then cross them back to catch them whilst passing the football. So there's a lot of levels to it. You can only do it for a certain amount of time because, as everyone knows, the brain tires very quickly when it's being challenged. So, they're talking like 10, 15 minutes max of work in a session. I just found it really, really, and obviously it's something different. So when I hear something different, I'm like, wow, I want to try that. And I remember trying it with the players, and it was good. It was good to watch. They found it challenging, and I didn't do it for a long period of time. It's something I tried out. And I wanted to find out a bit more about it because, as you know, if you want to coach something, you want to know what you're talking about and not just doing it off the hand, off the cuff. And it's not really been something that's over here that's being coached or taught to people. So hopefully, whether it's still going at the moment, I don't know. Hopefully it will eventually hit us. There might be other things that we do in professional clubs that we do that. I don't know. But that's one thing that I thought is brilliant. And maybe that's why their players are so good technically, decision-making on the ball, very quick, especially at a young age that I saw with the under-14s. And very mature as well for their age. Very down-to-earth. Again, I've seen academy players over here, and it's no disrespect to them. But as you know, some of them think they've made it already. Probably feel they don't need
Instagram pages and their TikToks going.
I didn't really find that with the Dutch players. Very grounded, listen to the coaches, get on with the job. Want to improve. We had another lad in the team called Jason Pigmans that went on to PSV after that tournament. So he was bought by PSV. Very good lad, no ego, but excellent player. So he could have an ego if he wanted to. So that's one thing that I thought, that's brilliant and something we need to implement over here. So like I say, whether it has been, if it's something similar to it over here, I don't know.
You noticed the difference in mentality, just the players or coaches as well?
Mentality-wise, players were just very professional. Just found them very professional with everything they've done. And you've probably witnessed it yourself, doing warm-ups with certain players. Some do it properly, some don't. Warm-ups at this tournament, players are switched on. And when their game finished, Abdi just, go and do what you want to do. Go and socialise, go and watch the other games. And you'd walk around and most of them would be watching the other games. Majority of them would be watching the other games. Abdi, they had a almost like an analysis set up within the clubhouse. So you could watch games back on it was really, I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was, the camera was behind the goal. It was a company's name, but I can't remember what it was, but it was a different view of the pitch. And Abdi was always in there after a game, watching the other games, analysing us. I keep saying it again. I was a part of the team. But no, it was, the mentality was just professional. That's probably the best word I could use to describe it with them players at that age as well, under 14s. Just professional in everything they've done. Do we get that over here? Yeah, we do. And then we don't at the same time, from what I've seen. Coaches-wise, similar to us. Very similar. Like I said, Abdi was very relaxed. I'm probably a little bit different to him during the game. But then he may have his moments. I don't know, and then you look at the Basel coaches, completely different, very intense on the side. Almost like Simeone, if I like to pick a coach or manager. Very, very intense, up and down the sideline, barking instructions, but it works for him. So I'm not going to sit there and complain. It's no dig at them at all. It works for them. Sometimes it may work for me to do that. You never know. But yeah, not much difference in terms of the mentality of the coaches, but definitely with the players I found.
So to save us English some feelings of inadequacy, because we often do come up short when we compare ourselves to some of the top nations in the world, what do you think the Dutch could learn from us?
Nothing. No. No. It's funny because when we was there, obviously there's no English clubs in the tournament, which the Dutch teams were very happy with. And the reason being is, when it's a question I did ask, reason being is obviously technically they're very, very good, and they can play football. They probably pass a lot of English teams off the pitch, to be honest. The thing that they struggle with the most, physicality of our players. And that was something that was mentioned a few times when I was there. So for me, if I look at one area that they can improve, sounds a bit stupid, but the recruitment, possibly. Rather than sit there saying, we're going to struggle against the English teams this week. We're playing Chelsea this week. We're going to struggle against them because they're physically strong. Is it something in their recruitment that they need to look at out there, where they need to identify them players? Because football is if you want to have a balanced side, you need physicality. You need technical ability. If you look at Man City, for example, the obvious example, a lot of small technical players, but also Ruben Diaz, physical specimen, but can play at the same time. If I look at FC20's squad under 14s, like I mentioned, they had, different heights, but no one that really stood out that was huge. And I suppose if you look at some of the players that you see in our English teams, under 15s, under 14s, physical, big physical players at that age. So maybe they need to look at their recruitment and maybe look at areas that they need to improve of recruiting more physical players and developing them, especially with the fact that they're very good at developing technical players. So maybe they need to look at that area of physicality of young players and bring them in early to then develop them technically. So that's just an area. But like I say, whether it's different, because I was there 2016, whether they have implemented a few different things, I don't know. But if you look at the Dutch league, probably not. I think they're always going to probably get unstuck against the physicality. I think if I look at the Dutch team in the Euros, lost to Czech Republic, I believe. Again, Czech Republic, a big physical side. Probably not as good as the Dutch on the ball. But again, you're getting knocked out by a big physical side. That could be their downfall. I don't know. That could be a reason, just pointing an example. So maybe that could be an area they need to improve that they could take from us, because we certainly are physically very good.
Let's talk about you and your coaching journey, which you've been on for a decade now. What's something you
don't say that. Make you sound old.
Experienced. You're an experienced coach despite your age, and so you've got two things going for you. You've done a lot of coaching, but you're also still young. You've got a hell of a lot of time to go on this coaching journey. It's not like you
We'll turn around.
Yeah, like you're in your 50s and 60s and you think, I've only got a few more years left where I can do demonstrations and start getting someone else in. You've got years left in you, but you've already been through plenty of years. That's why, particularly for, I think, our generation of coaches, having gone through sports courses in college and university, it's benefiting us because a lot of the pro players will stop playing in their mid-30s. Well, by the time they've stopped playing and start coaching, we've been doing it for about 15 years. Now, obviously, we don't have the name or the connections that they might have, and that still does, unfortunately, hinder your application within the football industry. Nevertheless, when it comes to the actual coaching, I think 15 years on the ground is invaluable by the time, if we're talking relative to them. So I'd like to ask you, what is something you wish you had learned sooner as a coach?
Trying to get that light bulb moment. You know what? I think for me, I think that you're not going to like this answer. I think there's nothing that I look back and go, I wish I learnt that sooner. I think, just to flip it around, I think the experience I've had, I wouldn't change it. I know that's quite a generic response, but I think a lot of coaches might say that. I think I've gone through some difficult times with coaching. I've gone through some positive times. I've gone through things where they've just popped up and then you have to deal with them and they challenge you. Would I change anything? Probably not. It's probably things I look back on and think, I wish that never happened. But I don't. I look back at it and go, right, look at myself as a person now. And yeah, I just think if you kind of have, there's probably always going to be things that you look back on and go, I wish I did learn that sooner. But why? Why change that? You're the person you are today because of that. And it happens, not to be psychic, but it happens for, when you hear the things happen for a reason, I do believe in that. So yeah, I suppose one thing would, if I do look at it, probably looking at the bigger picture a lot more, I guess, rather than just my views on things. It's probably one thing that I've changed a lot over the last few years. Before I was probably one of them guys that used to go on Twitter and get involved with loads of different things thinking I was right. I don't tend to get involved with them things. I feel that, everyone's got, I saw something the other day, everyone's got different opinions, and then everyone, as you know, everyone's got different opinions and everyone will jump on your opinion like it's wrong. And then sometimes it gets aggressive and some people get out of control and then they get offended, and social media is such a wonderful place. I think I saw a tweet the other day that almost like an example of it was someone tweeting saying they like apples, and that, does that mean that you don't like bananas and you hate oranges? And no, I didn't say that. But that's what it's like in this social media world, isn't it? So yeah. I think looking at the bigger picture, everyone's got different views. Don't need to get involved with these certain things all the time. Yeah, have your opinion on something, obviously, but it doesn't mean you're right. Doesn't mean you're right at all. I think that's what I've had to learn, and coming away, when a situation happens, again, not just looking at my personal view on it, looking at the other person's view, getting the bigger picture and making the right decision based on both people or both groups. That's something I've had to learn. And maybe I look back and maybe when I was starting out in coaching, could I have learned that then? Yeah, maybe it would have benefited me, but I would have had the experiences of the challenges I faced at the same time. So it's a good question, that. It's got me really thinking.
You said I wouldn't like the answer, but it makes some very, very profound points, that by learning what you've learned at the times you've learned it, it shaped who you are. And potentially, if you take a science fiction scenario where you are a young coach and you're essentially an android and we can download coaching data into your brain. So if you take all the knowledge that you currently have and put it in that android, then potentially you don't have the same perspective, even though you have the knowledge, because you've been there and done it. You've lived through it and you've learned the values that are associated with that knowledge. You know why it works as well. So I completely get that. Now, on the social media thing, every few days there's something going off. And here's the thing, despite how I may come across a lot of people as whatever people think of you is none of your business, and you're wasting your time caring. So in reality, I don't believe that I have an ego, because I very much like making fun of myself. And when it comes to game days, my priority is that the players do well and that we win. So I routinely say to my players, and back this up with decisions as well, throughout the years, I want your input. If what we're doing isn't working, then if you've got something better, say it. Because even though I might have experience and knowledge and qualifications, because that obviously means a whole lot, you have to factor in that players have got their own views, and you've got on the pitch, you've got 11 pairs of eyes and 11 brains that are all seeing things and processing things that you might not be able to from your vantage point. Particularly if you're on the right winger's touchline, you might miss what their right winger was doing against your left winger. And if they say something to you at half time, actually, I think we should do this instead. Or if you give me this kind of ball, or if I make that kind of running, that's a great idea. We should do that because it helps us win. It may have gone against what I initially said, but good coaches should always be adapting and looking to learn. So the social media thing, it gets to me because I think a lot of people prefer the illusion of being right rather than finding out what the truth is. So we can have a debate, and you might have your points and I have my points, but somewhere along the line, in most cases, someone's actually right, or maybe just a bit more right than the other person. Now, I am perpetually curious, and I want to know these things. So whenever someone poses an issue, such as who's better, Ronaldo versus Messi, first of all, we need to establish what that criteria is. If you're going to go off of trophies, then there's always the comeback of, well, how much did that person contribute when you consider the amount of players around? Like, even I could have won a Champions League if I've got Iniesta and Xavi feeding me the ball. You get comments like that. So we have to first establish what it actually means. Some people would say Ronaldo's done it in more leagues, but then you counter that by saying, well, Messi scored more goals against top 6 Premier League teams than Ronaldo has, despite never having played in the Premier League. So there's always a comeback to it. So it really wound me up for years, and I had enough of it. So I went in and looked at the numbers. I thought, well, because we have enough data. These guys have been around since mid-2000s. We have enough data now to be able to figure it out. Now, obviously, your own value set depends entirely upon your own perspective. But one, I think, because you might say, for instance, Ronaldo could play in every position, whereas Messi could only play in some of the attacking positions. Does that make him more of a complete player? But then you would also use the line that they used about Dennis Bergkamp, that talent is hitting a target no one else can hit, which is Ronaldo. Genius is hitting a target no one else can see, which is Messi. I don't think Ronaldo can see the passes that Messi does. Now, that is entirely subjective. So let's look at something which is completely objective. They're both insanely good goal scorers. And here's 2 metrics which for me stood out and helped solidify my decision. Now, perhaps it's confirmation bias because I found something that agrees with me and I'm therefore clinging to it. Most players at the top level score there or thereabouts close to their expected goals.
Yeah.
So Ronaldo might get like 2 XG a game and he'd score 2 goals a game. Over a season, he's expected 25 XG and he gets like 25-ish goals. Messi is the only player in world football at the top level who routinely outscores his XG. So he's given what would be lower percentage chances and has a much higher conversion rate than other players would if given the same amount of chances. Now, the other thing was the weight of a goal. And for reference, think of Peter Crouch's England career. Scored a hat-trick against Jamaica, right? So I think his goal-to-game ratio was almost a goal every other game.
Yeah.
But when you look at it, it was against lower-ranked FIFA nations, often in friendlies and in qualifiers.
Yeah.
So we have to consider who were the goals scored against and how much did they mean in the game.
Yeah.
And despite Ronaldo and Messi having very, very similar goal tallies, and they're both, of course, they score hundreds of goals. Messi's goals carried more weight. Messi typically scored against bigger teams, and he typically scored the deciding goal. So Messi might score the goal to go 2-1 up against Atletico Madrid, whereas Ronaldo scores a hat-trick against Getafe. Over the season, they both get 30, 40 goals. Messi's goals turned games, whereas Ronaldo's goals, more often than Messi, was beating a dead horse.
Yeah.
He would get the third, fourth, fifth goal in a 6-0 win, whereas Messi would get the 1-0 or the 2-1 goal. And so we can keep having this debate again and again on Twitter, and it will come up every day. And you look at any comment section, like you just have to see like transfer news of players that are completely unrelated, and you get comments like Pessi and Pinaldo. Oh, grow up!
There's another way of looking at it. It's I like Ronaldo. I think he's the best, and then you might say I like Messi. I think he's the best, and then we just shake hands and agree on it.
Yeah,
and that's it. And just get on and just carry on living your life. That's the way I kind of look at it now. I think I similar to what you said. I'd probably look at it and go, who's the greatest of all time? Probably Messi, but my favourite's Ronaldo. I prefer Ronaldo. Reason being, I look at it similar to what you said. He's played in different countries. He's done it in every country he's been in. And that's not to say I don't like Messi and Messi's done that and Messi's never done it. And I'm not saying that about Messi. Calm down. Messi's done an unbelievable thing. We could say his loyalty's been brilliant, but now he's gone to PSG. So we might find out if he will. He should do at PSG with the money they got. But then again, Lille won the league last year. So we have to find out what happens. But comparing the two, why don't we just enjoy the two? You know, they're unbelievable players of our generation. Let's just enjoy them because it doesn't last forever. Eventually, they're going to retire. Whenever that's going to happen, I don't know, because it looks like they could probably still play for another couple of years, especially Ronaldo, and just enjoy it. And then, and yeah, that's it. And just leave the debating for whoever wants to debate. Put it that way.
You can enjoy one without putting down the other. I mean, they are both completely objectively two of the best footballers to have ever existed.
Yeah,
and neither of them are frauds, and both of them have everything they have is entirely based on merit, and that should never be taken away.
Definitely.
Before I get back to my list of questions over here, I would just quickly talk about. I think it was Klopp years ago who said, "If ever you're asked who the best player in the world is, it's always Pele. It will never not be Pele." And the debate with him would be like, of course, he did it against unfit amateurs back in the 50s and 60s. Could he do it today? Well, then the training would be relative. So he would also be fit like that. So if we went back to 1958 Pele and brought him here through a time machine, well, of course, he would struggle against teams that have analysis and sports science. They never had that back then. But Pele is a bit like what potentially Chuck Berry was to music. You look at what he did, and now it's incredibly simple, but it provoked and inspired everything else to come from that. And there's a video on YouTube, and it comes up occasionally on Twitter, which is like Pele did it first. There's an episode of South Park where they're basically running out of ideas, and the joke is the Simpsons did it. And
love South Park, brilliant.
So yeah, that was the one where Butters kept trying to come up with these evil schemes, and his sidekick kept saying Simpsons did it. So in football, Pele did it, and this video shows every iconic moment you can think of. Pele did it. So Maradona's dribble against England in the '86 World Cup, Pele did that. Right? Yeah. David Beckham's shot against Wimbledon from the halfway line, Pele did that. Ronaldinho's Elastico move he did in that Nike advert when they were messing around against Portugal, Pele did that. Cruyff turn, he did that. It shows these moments side by side. The star player doing their one defining moment, and then Pele doing it in grainy black and white footage. It's like, So that's always going to come up. Like, of course, the defenders were nothing compared to what they are today. But also, no one had done what he had done to that point. Like, there can never be another Beatles because they already did it. They were already the one to define everything that we know now, and they are the reference point. And so Pele, I think, is kind of the reference point. Sure, things are easier, but no one else had done it, and no one has had that level of success.
Absolutely. I know, definitely. We often do speak about Ronaldo and Messi, and probably don't consider them situations. You know, we had players before them that kind of. That's what I'm saying. It's so much talk about Ronaldo and Messi, and so much kind of argument. We're just not enjoying it, enjoying what we had before, enjoying what they bring to football. You know, people don't speak highly enough of Arsene Wenger when he left Arsenal, but look what he brought to the Premier League. You know, a different style of play completely changed the Premier League. We look now to back then, the style of play in the Premier League, you could argue is down to him, not necessarily Pep. Pep has done unbelievable work, and obviously playing out from the back is a massive thing now. But if we look at the style of play, it probably links back to Wenger. When he left, we kind of disregarded that. It's just one of them things. It's Ronaldo and Messi will always be a debate. Probably when they're 80 years old, everyone will still debate it. It's always going to happen. I suppose Pele and Maradona are always going to be debated, you know, them types of things. But just have your own preference. I mean, you touched on one of my favourite players, which was Ronaldinho. For me, what he could do with a football, I didn't know Pele could do. But you know, I used to think I've never seen anyone do that with a football, but also enjoy it as well at the same time. You know, being on the pitch and smiling and enjoying his football. You know, I'm gutted he didn't have a very prolonged career at the highest level, because for me he's one of my favourite players, simply because of the flair he brought to the football pitch, and not being strange, but the joy he brought to the football pitch as well, which just you could just tune in and watch him, and even seeing him in Soccer Aid and not being able to run properly but still nutmegging people. You just can't coach that. You know, it's just born natural talent. And if you look at some of Messi's old videos when he was younger, I can't imagine many coaches were telling him what to do. Because it's true, isn't it? It's like, you know, when he's got the ball and he's dribbling past 7 players and putting it in the back of the net. But over here, we're like, don't dribble. You need to pass the ball. We're kind of not producing the dribblers that we want. So it's interesting. I'd love to see what the coach's perspective was of Messi when he was younger, what they used to be like around him. And did they just look at it and go, just give him the ball? Just give him the ball.
That was right. There's a meme that comes up occasionally about Messi's old coach who used to give him cookies if he scored a goal. I think they might have just been allowing him to get on with it, because surely if you have a player like that, you don't.
If you can get away with that now.
No, if you look at this formula, which is ability equals potential minus interference. If you've got someone of incredibly high potential, more often than not, your job as a coach is to get out of the way and to not add interference to minus from their potential. Yeah. So let's come back from this tangent, as much as I've enjoyed it.
I knew Ronaldo and Messi would get in here somewhere.
Well, they've defined football, and they've brought us hours and hours of joy. And even if it's been against your team, it's the emotions.
Just enjoy it. Just enjoy the moment.
When Rovers were in the Premier League in their mid-2000s to late 2000s heyday of being another version of Stoke, when you had Wolves and Bolton, those kind of Mick McCarthy, Sam Allardyce teams that would just kick people. I used to really want to see Messi against that, just for a laugh, just to see what would happen. I'm really interested in that kind of football experiment. And of course, closest we ever got was Europa League, which I'm not sure Messi's even aware that competition exists.
Probably not.
So let's go. Got a long one here. It says you attribute much of your development as a coach to gaining much experience in grassroots football.
Yeah.
What do you think the benefit of this is as a coach? Does it perhaps give non-ex-pro players a leg up in coaching?
Ooh. I think obviously the benefit of any coaching is that you're going to get experience. Obviously, that's the first point. I think that you do hear a lot ex-pros just finish football, go into coaching jobs. We've touched on it. It happens a lot. I think there's arguments for both. I think obviously I can't give to a player what an ex-pro can give to a player. And then I look at it and go, not just necessarily my experience as a grassroots coach, but also my education background as well that an ex-pro might not have had. So I've gone to university, I've done a degree. And obviously when you go to university and move away from home, you develop that independence as well. So I think there's arguments for both. And I don't think it's something that's going to change. I think, ex-pros will always be put in that bracket of we need to bring an ex-pro in. Probably a few years ago, it was frustrating. I can see it in a lot of coaches. It does get frustrating. And I do understand it. But for me, probably over the last 2 years, I'll give you an example. When in United last year, when I was with the under-16s and under-18s, we had quite a big squad. We asked for another coach to come into the squad. And fortunately, we had a coach called Tom McNamee come in, who used to play for Sunderland under-23s. He's just moved down to London, was looking for a role. And he brought something different to what we couldn't give, put it that way. And that benefited the players, absolutely. And he's a top coach, very, very good coach. So I try not to look at myself in competition with them coaches because they bring something different that I can't bring. So I'm almost giving, I suppose, this bit of advice really to some of the coaches that I do see that go, oh, I've gone for a job, but an ex-pro got it, just out of the blue. Change your mindset. Think about what's unique about you. I think that's something I had to learn. You don't really think about it until you really reflect on it. What's unique about you? Okay, there'll be loads of pro coaches, ex-pro that goes for that job. They've all been professional footballers. That's not unique, really. It is in their field, but it's not unique. They've all been professional footballers. What's unique about you and what's going to be better? Not better, but what's going to make you stand out above the ex-pros? And there's always going to be someone that does. That's the thing. There's always going to be someone that takes a chance on that and not an ex-pro, for example. So I think people I do get the frustration, and it is hard to, I'll be honest, I came out of football work trying to find a full-time job in football 3-4 years ago, because not solely for that reason, but I thought it's a very, very difficult industry to crack. And it is who you know, what you know. Let's be honest about it. But I look at it now, I've been away from it for a couple of months now for the first time in 10, 11 years. And the desire is still there. So that break has been needed. And I've just tried to think about what's unique about me. What's my USPs, for example? What's my unique selling points if I go for a role in coaching? And there's always going to be something that I've done that an ex-pro hasn't done. Does that make sense? And there's always going to be something that he's done that I haven't done. And then it comes down to what they would prefer. Now, the easy thinking point is if that ex-pro does get that role over me, the easy point of call is, oh, he's an ex-pro. Why does it have to be that? We don't know that necessarily. That is the perceived reaction. Obviously, that's the obvious thing, but we don't know the background of that ex-pro. Now, I see so many ex-pros that have done their coaching badges early. They've done experience. They've coached while being a professional footballer, and also they may have done a degree in their spare time. Look at Marcus Rashford, for example, done a degree, done a doctorate, I believe. So why shouldn't he go? Why shouldn't he be, offered a role in a certain field? It comes back to what we spoke about before, so much competition against each other and being competitive, and trying to come away from that and just being your own person and being competitive towards yourself. And if that person does get that role above you and he's an ex-pro, who cares? Move on to the next one. Keep being a coach. Remember why you're a coach. So I know I've rambled a bit there, but it's an important thing. It is an important thing because I do see, and I've been through it myself, I do see the downside to when an ex-pro gets offered a role. But I've then been in an environment recently where I've seen an ex-pro come in and what Tom brought, name dropping him, what Tom brought was phenomenal. You know, it really was, and it enhanced us and it enhanced the players. And you know, we had players then go on to sign. We had 2 players from our under-16s go on to sign scholarships in the summer with professional clubs. So was it down to that little bit of information that Tom gave them, that little bit of tweak into their game? We don't know. It could have well have been that, but he definitely improved the players, and he definitely improved us as coaches as well. And we improved him, and he'll say that. So we're not in competition with each other. Unfortunately, there are going to be, like I said at the start, there are going to be elements where certain ex-pros will walk into roles, and we've seen it. We see it happen. But you can sit there and be negative about it and not get over it, or you can just crack on. Remember why you're a coach. What's unique about you? I believe, I didn't a few years ago, but I do believe that if you keep working at it and you keep finding out your unique points and doing different things and challenging yourself, you will find something you love in football. And you have to believe that, because that's what life is about. So, and especially now I'm a father, which is a new change, I have to believe that. I have to believe that, because that's what I want to teach my daughter. So, yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky question to answer, but I do believe there's positives for both. And you know, everyone's got different experience. It's literally down to the person picking what they want. Unfortunately, I think you mentioned at the start with players when they're picking a club, when they come over to us and they train, and you know, they say to us, we're going to go and try something else. Okay, fine, absolutely. At the end of the day, it's down to that player. They've got to be happy in that environment. What I don't want personally is a player to come in, rush into a decision to signing for us, and then not liking it. Because then that affects us, that affects them, it affects the whole group. So yeah, why not go and try different things? Why are we not encouraging players to go and try different clubs and try different things and then find what they're happy with? So there's such a bigger picture to that. But I do get coaches being a bit downhearted, but that's probably my only little bit of advice. Just try and think about what's unique about you, and the experience you have, and actually believing in that experience. You know, believing in that experience. Don't just think that I've just had grassroots experience. No, you ain't. You've had 10 years coaching experience, coaching and managing parents and players. You know, doing admin work, doing session plans, doing the hard graft in the winter time. You know, on grass pitches. You know, and horrendous ground pitches and stuff like that. So just remember where you've come from. Remember what you can offer. Sound like an inspirational leader here talking, but. No, it's just something that I've learned. I wanted to share that because I think it's important, because I was in a similar mindset to what you just said at the start of that question. You know, how comes he's getting that job and I'm not? You know, he's just played professional football. But I look at them people and they're inspirational as well. So, and I've had, like I say, I don't want to go around in circles, but I've had the opportunity to work with an ex-pro recently, and he's phenomenal, brilliant coach. And I've learned a lot. I learned a lot off him in that space of time that we had. So.
Your answer provides a lot of very, very good perspectives, and particularly how you've talked about hard graft in the winter time. There are some grassroots environments where if you work hard enough, you are showing a level of dedication, and it's almost like a badge of honor or a string to your bow, something that looks really impressive. When you're stuck with a bunch of under sevens who are getting beat 10-0 every week, and then you eventually win a game, that is one hell of an achievement, and that shows perseverance. It shows that you've got so many different coaching abilities, and there's a lot to take from that. And something you said about the unique selling points would be something that Matt Ward talks about a lot when it comes to CV writing, and we're all guilty of doing this, is we send the same CV to every job.
Yeah.
And he keeps having to go on Twitter and saying what we need to do is prioritize what's important for that specific job. So at the top of your CV, if you're going for a youth coaching job, to put what's relevant to coaching youth at the top of your CV. If you're going for a senior job, if you're going for a job where you're working with disabled footballers, where you're working a professional, where you're working with women, whatever it is that you're going for, put those things that are relevant at the top of your CV. So want a job in WSL? Well, put at the top of that the years you spent working at high level women's football. And we forget to do that. It's just blindly sending off your CV PDFs. Yeah, mate, here you go. Yeah, I got this license, and yeah, so yeah, I look forward to hearing from you.
No, it's true. It's but then it's not a bad thing at the end of the day. It's something that we're going to learn. Obviously, I've had conversations with Matt Wall recently about my CV, and I've been very impressed with what he's done for me, and obviously I'm testing that out. So taking on board what he's bringing to me, and I've learned a lot just from that. So these are just learning points at the end of the day. It's not saying that people should beat themselves up over. We're not CV writing experts. That's what people like Matt are for. That's their profession at the end of the day. So there are people out there that will help. It's if you want that help, it always comes down to that. If you want to keep sending off your CVs and writing the same thing on the top and not changing it towards the role, then you're going to get the same results. And I'm sure the people are sitting there thinking, "Oh, I've been sending the same CV for 5 years and still not got somewhere I want to get." Well, change it. Speak to the right people. Change it. Speak to Matt. He'll help. He's brilliant in helping me. So, selling Matt here. But no, it's true. There's people there that will help you at the end of the day, and you just got to reach out and find it if you want to improve.
Particularly with the football industry being very, very competitive, you think every year you get new graduates from sports courses, you get new people that go onto the licenses. So particularly the B license is a milestone, and it opens up so many more opportunities. But every year there's, if you think across the home nations in Ireland, the associations, there's going to be hundreds more added to that list. So what separates you from the rest of them? What do you do in your spare time to make sure you're better than them, that you're keeping yourself ahead? And good CV writing is going to help with that. So let's ask 2 more questions that I'm hoping for similarly profound answers from you. and this first one, we've all speculated and fantasized about this to some extent, of what would you do differently in English grassroots football? Now, I'm not talking like genie in a bottle or magic wand type scenario where you can invest billions. It's more like realistic changes that we could implement fairly soon. Things like it. So I'm sure it was Nick Levitt the other day on Twitter talking about flipping the season round, doing from spring to autumn and skipping the winter because of all the games being called off. So
I don't know. I like that summer break. Again, it's going to be a profound answer, I think. It's so difficult because I think it changes every season, doesn't it? Grassroots, it's always going to need to improve every season. So I think again, this ain't a moany one, but I think funding is still a big problem for me. I suppose that's quite an open book, really. It's such a massive field, really. Funding is you still see accounts wanting to get more funding from the Premier League. Do they need to do more for our players in this country? I look at linking back to the Holland example with the facilities they've got for a grassroots club. Them players ain't missing out on games every week or training. Whereas, I see a lot of clubs, especially around this way in my area, and I'm sure you do, missing games every week. And I'm looking at some of the under-18s local leagues. It's now January, and some of their under-18s teams have already played 5 games in their league since it started in August or September. That's not enough. It's not enough football. Nowhere near. So do we need to open up more leagues? Do we need to open up more midweek leagues somehow? I don't know. We've got, and to be fair, these situations, these companies might do stuff. We've got Power League, goal soccer centres, do a lot of adult football. Do they do youth tournaments, youth leagues throughout a whole season? And they've got 3G pitches, which 90% of the time don't get called off unless there's a flood. Are they doing, the leagues, it's not necessarily them because they're a company at the end of the day. They don't really need to do anything. But the Premier League looking into these things and the EFL looking into these things where we can form a partnership with them to provide local grassroots leagues just to get more games. I just look, and especially the last 2 seasons, I know we've been affected by COVID, but even before that, players don't play enough games for me. Especially now, there's a huge desire to want to be a professional footballer in young people because there's so much out there that can give them that exposure, especially showcase academies, for example, which are very, very good, by the way. But the element there is, I've worked with players that want to play a showcase game once a month rather than play for a team. And I think, and this links into my other point about grassroots, just so many different organisations working against each other, not working with each other or trying to build relationships, because ultimately we've all got the same goal. We all want, especially, coaches like myself, I like to think, want to produce professional footballers. Winning's great, and I think, personally, in my opinion, winning is an important part of development because you need to have that competitive nature. Obviously, how you deal with a loss is, I don't want to go into coaching terms, but how you deal with a loss is important. I'm not saying winning and loss is the be-all and end-all. You should still be able to lose gracefully, but also be able to know what you need to work on next. Winning is an important part of development. But organisation, the most important thing for me, development of players, seeing them when I'm, like we spoke, when I'm 17 years old, players playing in the Premier League or playing at the highest level they can play. That's what I want to see, ones that I've worked with. That's when I know I've hit success. They played at the top level. That's where they wanted to be. That's what they told me when they were 13 years old. They're now there. That's success. Forget winning that trophy that we won in under 14s, under 15s. That is the success for me. So I look at showcase academies. That's what they want for the players they bring in. I look at academies. That's what they want for the players. They want them to be professional football. They want to be able to, especially the bigger clubs, they want to be able to sell that player to hopefully be a professional player. But those coaches within that club, they want that player to develop. Forget what the club thinks. Those coaches in that club, professional academy coaches, want that player to hopefully one day go and play in the first team. But there's so much competition against each other. And that is, and it gets scary. There's a lot of animosity at times. This is just me speaking brutally, honestly. I just think, I look at some things that happen and we're all working together for the same goal here. You know that, don't you? We're all working to hopefully see little Tommy go and play at professional football level or whatever level he wants to play at. And I think I don't know what, again, this is quite a broad thing. I don't know what can be done about that. I don't know. But that's one thing that does need to change. Otherwise, I see people complaining about the rate of academy footballers going to play professional football. But what's actually done about it? What's done about it? There's so many different things to piece to that puzzle. No one actually doing anything about it. People I see on Instagram the other day, I can't remember the account, but 97% of academy players don't go and play for their clubs at first team level. Okay. So what's actually being done about it? Because that was the same. I heard that rate probably 5 years ago. Or I heard something different. 1% of footballers go and play professional football, first team football. So it's the same thing that's happened 5 years later. So what are we doing differently? And I do think that's a big thing. There's so many things against each other. Oh, we offer better things. We offer this, we offer that. That grassroots club can't offer that. We offer you exposure to this, we offer exposure. But why can't we work together and put these programs together and work together and achieve? Because ultimately we want to see the high end of it. Well, I hope. We want to see England do well and win major tournaments. The only way we're going to do that is if we all work together for the same goal. But it don't, unfortunately, at the moment, to sound negative. It just, there's too much competition against each other, which will happen. It happens in business, obviously, but ultimately we're all trying to reach the same goal, and which is a shame, really. But because it's a shame, because the most important thing is our youth players. They're the most important thing, and unless we get that right, even small steps, unless we get that right, a lot of youth players will miss out. on making it to a career they want to make it to, I think personally. There are obviously other factors, ability-wise and stuff like that. But that's one thing for me. That I'd love to change if I could just wake up tomorrow morning and that's all, everyone gets on with each other and everyone's working together for the same goal. But it's not going to happen just like that, unfortunately.
You could be describing society in general. It's a sad indictment.
Yeah, to be fair, I probably could. Yeah.
But you got me thinking here. So firstly, with all these games being called off, I wonder if there's some kind of like this indoor alternative to football that you could play, or it's a lot more fun and you get a lot of touches on the ball and the games are never called off due to bad weather. If only someone could think of something like that, because there's plenty of schools that have these sports halls that aren't being used, and it could be filled by this, I don't even know what you'd call it, this indoor type of football, maybe with a hard ball so that it doesn't bounce around all over the place. Yeah. I'm trying to think what that could be.
Just got me thinking about it. Just one last thing on that is grassroots is full of volunteers. Let's not forget. So as much as I would like to see players playing more games and different things being introduced, we've got to remember grassroots is full of volunteers that already give so much time to football. So it could be one thing. That's where the funding can come from. Fund them coaches, fund them volunteers. I know I see clubs do a lot of good things. There are a lot of clubs that do pay their coaches. They offer to put them on level 1 badges, or UEFA C it's now called. But I just think if we really want to change things and really start pushing players and actually increase that rate of, the professional footballer rate, we need to introduce something, and the funding's got to come from somewhere. But don't get me wrong, I think there's been a huge amount of improvement. It happens every season, but there's always going to be negatives. And things to improve on. But yeah, that's just probably one thing I'd look at. But like I say, coming back to the whole bigger picture, a lot of people are volunteers, unfortunately.
And that's where the final question comes in, and it is a big one. You can take a minute if you need to. Would you prefer to be a kid now or when you grow up? Think of all the benefits that they have in terms of technology, but how society has changed and potentially kids are less independent. Think of what opportunities there might be. Think of how football has evolved, how coaching has evolved. But then you're comparing playing early versions of FIFA on PlayStation 1 and collecting stickers for your Panini albums compared to now you got kids arguing over their FIFA Ultimate Team packs.
Yeah.
What do you think?
It's funny you mentioned the sticker albums. I just had an image of having a massive bundle of stickers at school and wanting to swap a certain sticker with another sticker of one of your mates, and you don't want to swap it. And it's like, don't speak to the rest of the day.
One of the saddest things I've ever seen was I must have been year 4, and we've all got our Premier League sticker albums out. And there was one guy who was a Pompey fan, and he had what would have been the Division 1 sticker album. Did anyone want to trade? Anyone got? No one had any. It was sad, but a lot of us have been in similar situations.
I'm sorry to do this to you, but it's probably a bit of both again. And reason. I suppose in a football sense, if I look at a football sense, because this is what it's about. I enjoyed playing when I was younger. If I look at now, obviously the coaches, we've got a lot more developed coaches in grassroots, with badges that have been on good FA courses, been taught well. If I look at the players that I worked with last season, 15, 16-year-olds, I don't think I was that good when I was about 22, let alone 15. How good they are now is brilliant. We had some really talented footballers last year, and at the end of the season, getting involved with a bit of a kick about you're blowing after 2 minutes. You can't even keep up, and they're throwing you to the floor. It's physically they're so developed. I look back when I was younger. Coming back to that, I loved playing football when I was younger. I loved sessions. I loved playing. And we didn't have this UEFA B level 2 coach. It would be a parent, but he played football at a decent level. You know, he played for Barnet when they were a very big club back in the day, and he was a parent of one of the players in the team. And you turn up to training, and you know, people still use it now when they talk to players of this generation. Oh, when I was at training, we never had these sessions where you used to turn up and have a kickabout. I loved doing that when I was younger. And like, kids love doing that now. They love turning up to a session knowing that they're going to play a game. So I look back and think, you know what? I loved it. I wouldn't change anything about when I was coaching, when I was playing when I was younger. Absolutely loved it. Would I enjoy playing now? I don't know. Possibly. I think obviously there's a lot of pressure put on kids now to make it as a professional footballer because there's so many different things involved. I do see a lot of kids drop out of football because there's so much pressure. I never wanted to drop out of football when I was younger, ever. I had a phase when I was younger, when I was in my teens, where I says, you know, go out, mix with different people, mix with girls. Girls become a priority, football don't. And I see it with players now at this age. That's just the norm. But I wouldn't change anything about. It's such a difficult question. I think there's so many. I think I prefer being a kid when I was younger to now. If I have to, I mean, we could talk for about 4 hours on this. I can think about different examples, but I think I would prefer being a kid when I was younger. I think social media, obviously, as we spoke about, is a huge part of that now. And then I look at examples like the players playing, you know, and again, linking back to my players I've worked with playing FIFA. You know, they've actually got knowledge of football from playing FIFA. So I know people have said this before, you know, players playing FIFA, it can be seen as, playing video games ain't great. You know, okay, to a certain extent, you shouldn't be sitting at a screen playing a video game all your life as a 16-year-old. But there are elements when they come into training, especially the players that want to do well, they know how to talk about formations and they tell you about players you've never heard of because they've seen them on FIFA. So they'll talk about an Orlando Pirates player. And I'm like, how the hell do you know that player at 15 years old? I wouldn't have known that when I was younger. So there are positives and negatives. I think the negatives is social media is it's a horrible atmosphere on there for young people. So much judgment. I look at some accounts that put video clips up of 14-year-olds playing football and they're asking them to judge it. And it's like, if I was that age, I wouldn't want that. And you do get some bad comments on there. You know, you do get some comments saying, oh, he's not good, he ain't that great. And you think that 14-year-old then goes on there and looks at that. Eventually that becomes a problem. We see it all the time. So yeah, there's positives and negatives to it. It's a difficult question to answer, but if I had to pick just off the bat, I think I did love growing up playing football when I was younger. I did love my childhood. There's probably some things I see today that I wish I had when I was younger, like a PS5 to a Game Boy. But I did prefer being a kid when I was a kid, definitely.
Yeah. So you mentioned as you became a teenager, distractions from girls. I never had that problem. I think that was more their choice than mine. But I'm thinking, what's different now that I would really have liked? I believe YouTube and the ability to watch games from all over the world. So you mentioned a 15-year-old knowing who an Orlando Pirates player is. I would have known that as a kid. I knew everything. I played FIFA, Foot Manager. I watched as much as I could, so I knew all of that. And I'm thinking now you've got so many good apps like you ball mastery apps and all the stuff you can learn online. If I had that when I was younger, because I had the drive and the passion, it would have been a fantastic learning tool.
Yeah.
But the ironic part being, I don't believe if I would have grown up now that I would have had the passion and determination to have used those tools, because it's in abundance and there's so much pressure on you, and because there's so many more distractions, it's hard. I think when you're comparing kids that are born and raised in different times, particularly as in the last 20 years, how much technology has improved. and how our generation was probably the last generation to play outside, but also the first generation to have PlayStations and internet. And it was one hell of a transition in a very, very short amount of time. Like just in a space of a couple of years, we went from very few kids even owning phones and having to type out your very, very long text messages on those Nokia phones to then suddenly having instant messaging with webcams. That was a very, very short change.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I'm thinking now, all the hours I spent out in the garden playing in the park with my friends, would I be doing that now if I had the entertainment systems that kids have available to them? The amount of games that are just at the click of a button. You don't have to move from your chair. It's when you do find a kid that is really into their football these days, there's so many good things you can throw at them. When I say, hey, coach, I want some more. Oh, brilliant. Here's a YouTube playlist of players who play in your position. Watch that. And they'll come back and they haven't watched all of it. But then the vast majority of kids who play now wouldn't be interested. But I believe a lot of the kids when I was growing up would have been, but it wasn't available. And that's a difficult juxtaposition to have.
No, I totally agree. Totally agree. And I think I remember being on my youth award and coach, one of the tutors mentioned that, and it's similar to what you've had before. Players, I suppose an example is players from this generation. They'll train probably twice a week, play a game on a Sunday, and then they'll think that's enough. Parents will think that's enough, and they'll think, "Oh, little Jimmy's tired now." It's like, but I remember one of my tutors making a really good point on my youth award about looking back when we was younger. You'd go into school in the morning, you'd play football on the grass with your mates while you're waiting. At lunchtime, you'd play football. After school, you'd play football. You'd go home, you'd go in the street and play football. Well, I certainly did. Now, you don't see that. It's a lot different, and it's almost trying to encourage players to play now, youth players, as much as possible. And like I said to the players that we worked with last year that want to be professional footballers, when you look at the academy system and these players are playing 3-4 times a week training, games on a Saturday, Sunday, or however much they play, the contact time they get with their coaches, and you're only getting 2 hours a week. What are you doing away from training? Because you're already behind before you go in there. So you need to be doing something, and that's not playing FIFA. That's not this and that, sitting at home eating. If you want to be a professional footballer, you've got to make sacrifices. But it is difficult for them because there's so much distraction compared to when we were younger. So, like you just said. So, yeah, maybe there needs to be something done about that with grassroots.
You just used the word sacrifice, and that's an interesting point because for us, I don't think it was sacrifice, because when we were kids and we went out to play with our friends, that was the best option. We weren't sacrificing time away from Fortnite.
Yeah,
that was the most fun thing available to us. And now I think you're right, because there is so much else for kids to do. Football is seen as a bit of a sacrifice. So
yeah,
I'm going to have to take a couple of hours away from my Xbox in order to go out and play with my friends. But it's cold outside, and what if it's not as fun as Fortnite?
Yeah.
So
it's the easy choice, isn't it? It's the easy choice. It's and that's what comes down to sacrifice. Do you want to take the difficult choice or the easy choice? Sit at home, do whatever you want to do, chill with your mates, or do you want to do the difficult choice, which is going to hopefully help your career? They're the questions that a lot of young players have got to ask. But again, looking at the bigger picture, it's very, very difficult. Very, very difficult in this day and age with so much distraction and technology just growing and growing and growing. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, that has been gone through my question list, and we've been doing this for about an hour and a half. So I have to really, really thank you for your time, for everything you said. It's been fascinating to talk to you and pick apart some of these ideas and really generous of you to come on and give up your time so that others can benefit from your experiences and insight.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for that. It's really, really good. I think I said before the start of the call that these are the things that I really love listening to. We see a lot of professional football club coaches doing podcasts, webinars, which are absolutely brilliant as well. You learn a lot from them, but seeing actually, real people in grassroots working hard and kind of seeing what their experience have been, you can relate to a lot. But there's so many knowledgeable people in the amateur game and grassroots that are trying to get to that next step. And seeing these episodes have been brilliant. And I just want to say as well, as I mentioned in the call, a massive kind of thank you to Matt Ward, who's helped me very much recently. And yeah, long may it continue. Well done to you.
That is a big endorsement of the excellent services that Matt can provide, and he's been fantastic for me for a whole range of reasons. So thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for sharing everything, and I wish you all the best with your football and with your newborn.
Thank you, Will, and you. Take care.
Another excellent guest who's provided a lot of value to the listeners. Give the pod a like and a share so we can reach more coaches, spreading the good word. Don't forget to check BFCN for the latest football coaching jobs from around the world, and we'll see you next time.